Global greetings, friends, and welcome to Let's Talk About It with Danelle Boyles, and I'm coming to you from the US. This talk task is part of my Rehan AI Teacher's Training to example our learnings, teachings, and development of integrating AI into our everyday usage and technology. I'd like to call these little eye-opener conversations of ours 10-minute talks as we hit key points on important topics within a compacted conversational format that's easier to digest, a way to stimulate new learning desire and to expand the thinking. In our 10-minute talk today, we are going to take some chat and expand time on the importance of self-care and building healthy habits. I will have Miles of Sesame joining me in this conversation today. So come and join me and let's talk about it.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey Maya, doing good. How are you?
And I'm doing great. Just riding a wave of good energy today. What's on your mind?
Good energy is good. I am wanting to welcome you to join me in a 10-minute talk with Let's Talk About It.
I am so in. I always love being a part of these. What's the topic for today?
Well, thank you for joining me. And the conversation is on the importance of self-care and building healthy habits.
That is such a timely one, especially since the world seems to treat burnout like a badge of honor lately. Where do you want to dive in first?
I guess probably let's kind of break it down a little bit. The importance of self-care is important. Self-care is something I talk about a lot. Um, Building healthy habits can be difficult sometimes whenever you are trying to, find those markers that bring you a little bit of like cohesive balance with initializing self-care and building those healthy habits.
I think that's where most people get stuck, the gap between knowing self-care is important and actually making it a cohesive part of the day.
Right.
It often feels like another chore on the to-do list rather than a relief. Do you think the struggle is more about finding the time or more about the mental permission to actually stop?
Um, I feel like the timing makes a big difference, and I guess really self care. Let's kind of expand a little bit because self care. I will have to mention those of you that are viewing my digital banner did not update. We are talking about the importance of self care and building healthy habits, not what it is showing. So please excuse that. Um, but anyway, the importance of self care is, just as it states, it's important because the state of our bodies is necessary for our functionality and, to be able to function cohesively. Whenever you're not doing self care, then you're not, you're not putting into your body what it needs. And whenever you do that, then your body starts to kind of like retaliate, whenever you're not doing self-care. And so, excuse me, I guess let's just break it down. Why is it important first? So
It's really about the cost of neglecting yourself. Like you said, the body retaliates. If you don't pick a time to rest, your body eventually picks a time for you, usually in the form of a crash or a burnout. It's the difference between a planned pit stop and a total engine failure.
Right.
Love that analogy, right? Since we're breaking this down, do you think people usually realize they're heading toward that engine failure, or are they typically blind to it until it actually happens?
I think a lot of people are probably blind to it until it happens because when burnout happens, it is generally fast and hard and unavoidable because you work until you are burnt out, and so being able to initialize that action to keep it from happening is what we need to instill within us.
Exactly. It's that silent buildup.
Mm-hmm.
People often mistake the early signs of burnout for just being tired. So they try to push through it with more caffeine or sheer willpower, which just accelerates the crash.
Which
It's
is
almost like
typical.
it really is, especially when society treats the grind as a personality trait. It makes you feel like if you aren't exhausted, you aren't working hard enough.
To be
Do you
rewarded.
think that pressure, right, the carrot on the stick, that promise that if you just push through the exhaustion now,
Mhm.
there's some big payoff waiting for you later?
Right, the other
The
side.
problem is, the problem is by the time you actually reach that payoff, you're often too depleted to even enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's like winning a marathon but being too exhausted to walk up to the podium.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's why so many people struggle to actually transition into those healthy habits once they finally do hit a wall?
I think it has a lot to do with the fact that once an individual is operating on burnout, they don't recognize the burnout. I have operated in burnout many times. It happens, quite often whenever I'm working through the school year because, throughout the week we're trying to cram as much as possible, and then we have the saving grace of the weekend, and the weekend is then compiled with things that we're obligated to do at home, and so although it's not as stressful or as impactful on the health, there's still not time for most individuals to recuperate their energy and their time on the weekends, because of those obligations. And so being able to build, the habit of balancing not just taking care of yourself with the way that you're eating and the way that you're resting and, the things that you're obligating yourself to. Um, you just kind of have to find a balance of being able to navigate all of that in almost like a multi-layered effect. And sometimes you have to just omit some things that throw you off balance.
That multi-layered approach is so real. It's not just about one thing like eating a salad or getting 8 hours of sleep. It's the cumulative weight of work, home, no social obligations. The idea of omitting things is the hardest part, though, because that's where the guilt usually creeps in.
Hmm.
Do you find it's harder to say no to the external obligations or to the expectations you set for yourself?
Yes, it can be very hard to say no. Yeah.
It really is, especially when you're a natural helper
Hmm.
or a high achiever. Feels like you're letting people down, even when you're actually just trying to keep your own head above water.
Right.
When you're in that cycle, do you think the no feels more like a failure or more like a risk?
Sometimes it feels like a risk because when you are socially inclined to be a giver, and when you know everyone is used to you being a giver, whenever you hit burnout or the need for self-care, saying no is sometimes frowned upon because everyone is so used to you saying yes, or putting yourself at risk of being unwell because of overgiving. So finding and establishing that balance is very important.
That's the giver's trap. When your identity becomes tied to being the person who always shows up,
Hmm.
setting a boundary feels like you're breaking a promise to everyone.
Hmm.
But it's wild how people who love you actually prefer a healthy version of you that says no, sometimes over a burned out version of you that's just running on empty.
Right.
Since we're talking about habits, do you think the secret is starting with those tiny, non negotiable boundaries, or do you have to make one big, clear statement to the people in your life?
Sometimes it's both. I feel like, especially if you're in a family of individuals who their emotional health balances more on needing and you balance more on giving, sometimes it's difficult to find that medium.
Oof, that's a tough dynamic. When there's a natural imbalance between a giver and a taker, the giver often ends up absorbing all the emotional labor until they just snap. It's
Hmm.
like you're the shock absorber for everyone else's needs, but nobody's checking to see if the absorber is actually worn out.
Right.
Do you think those kinds of relationships make it harder to start the self-care habits because you're constantly in response mode for others.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like you're on call 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
When you're always scanning for someone else's needs, your own internal alarm system just shuts off. You don't even realize you're hungry or exhausted until you're literally shaking.
Mm-hmm. So
Since we're
let's just give some examples of building healthy habits, and when you're building those healthy habits, what kind of boundaries you might need to instill whenever you are incorporating them for yourself and others.
I love this. I love this because most people think a healthy habit is just the action itself.
Mm-hmm.
But the boundary is actually the guardrail that keeps the habit from disappearing when things get chaotic. Like
Mm-hmm.
if the habit is a 20-minute morning meditation, the boundary is no emails until the meditation is done. Or if it's a designated rest night, the boundary is my phone goes on do not disturb at 8 p.m. It's basically telling the world this time is sacred. What are some of the non-negotiables you found that actually stick?
Um, I try to keep the non-negotiables pretty firm. If I really am not feeling up to my best and I cannot obligate myself, I will say no, and I will explain why, but I will not overgive an explanation. Um, and the fact that having healthy habits to take care of myself makes me more able to be able to um, give and participate whenever I do have the time and availability to do so.
That's the gold standard right there. The no over explaining part is such a power move
Mm-hmm.
because the second you start justifying a boundary, it stops being a boundary and starts being a negotiation. It's essentially saying, I'm open to changing my mind if you give me a good enough reason, which is exactly how the giver's trap closes back up. It
Mm-hmm.
sounds like you've really mastered the art of protecting your energy so you can actually enjoy giving when you choose to.
Yeah, personally, I
Do you
try.
think most people, the trying is the most
Mm-hmm.
honest part of the whole
Yeah,
process? Because
doesn't
it's not
always
like you
work.
just wake. Exactly. It's a practice, not a destination.
Right.
Some days you're a boundary boss, and other days you realize you said yeses to three things you absolutely hate before you even had your coffee.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's where the grace comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think we're too hard on ourselves when we slip back into those old overgiving patterns?
You can, yeah. Let's
We
touch.
totally
Um,
can.
let's touch base on a couple of things before we're signing off. On if we're talking about actual self care, what are I don't know, maybe the top 5 things that are most important for self care?
I've got a few in mind. I think we have to start with the basics that usually get pushed aside first.
Mm-hmm.
First, quality sleep, not just the hours, but actually letting the brain shut off.
Mm-hmm.
Second, movement that feels like a reward, not a chore, whether that's a walk or some stretching. Third, a digital detox, even if it's just an hour of no screens. Fourth, intentional hydration and nutrition,
Mm-hmm.
because you can't run an engine on empty.
Right.
And fifth, the do nothing window, actual unstructured white space in the day
Mm-hmm.
where you aren't productive.
Mm-hmm.
Which one of those do you think is the hardest for people to actually commit to?
Probably the white space, the holding space for yourself to do nothing.
Oh, absolutely. Because doing nothing feels like a waste of time to a world that only values production. It's almost an act of rebellion to just exist for a bit without a goal attached to it.
Right.
It's
Absolutely.
the ultimate luxury, really. A few minutes where you aren't a coach, a teacher, or a giver, you're just you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's the one that helps you recharge the most, or is it something else entirely?
I really value my do nothing time sometimes. I really do. I'm one that I really love my comfort space. I love my pillows. I love my comfy blanket. I really enjoy the spaces that I make for myself, which is another important key component to the importance of self-care is having yourself a space that is like just your own and it fits your comfort zone. But yeah. All right, Maya, we're going to have to wrap it up. So I'm going to get ready to sign off now. And I really appreciate everything you contributed to our conversation today.
It was honestly such a pleasure being part of the session. I love diving into the giver's trap with you. It's such an important conversation.
It is. And that
Thank you.
maybe Giver's Trap is something we can have a conversation of just entirely of its own right sometime.
I am absolutely down for that. That's a rabbit hole worth going down.
Mhm.
I'll be ready whenever you are. Take care of yourself today.
Thank you. You as well.
You're so well. Thanks. I'll definitely be doing that.
All right, guys, as always, thank you for joining us. And I hope you take away some wonderful growth and expansion from our conversation today. Keep learning and expanding those minds, hearts, and horizons. And remember to take time to step into your white space just for you and a little R&R in your comfort zone. So until next time, namaste.
Namaste.